Hi, welcome back. I'm Jessie Walters with Charles Rutenberg, and I'm here today with Cheryl Herny. We are explaining the contract, the new contract. This is part 2 of the new contract, or it's actually part 2 for the show, but it's page, section 8, section 8B. So I had actually good feedback. I had people call me and text me,
nice.
and yeah, a bunch of, actually a couple new realtors I help out a lot. They said that the information was really good. Of course, we're not attorneys, or we play one in in a movie sometimes, but we are not legal
we're not official
attorneys.
titles.
Yeah. So, but seriously, we explained the contract, a good part of it. So we're back today to explain the contract again. So Cheryl is I like to say a professional in her field because she's title company, Nightberry Title Services. And she also is the manager, and you handle quite a bit of the offices now,
yeah,
right?
the Florida Regional State Manager.
So regional, what is your region?
All of Florida, from the Panhandle to Fort Myers, Sanibel to the East Coast.
Wow. So you're going to need a new car at the end of the year. So
right?
if anyone's selling a new car, low miles. So Cheryl plays a game, which we'll get to the contract, but you play the game of I'm about to run out of gas in my car, which I play with her sometimes. But so you just randomly get the message that
I need a new car that has an endless supply of gas.
Maybe electric. We can get the gas.
Or it comes
electric.
with somebody who can fill it up for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you need, someone to drive with you, right?
I don't know if I should go electric. I might run out, too.
Yeah, because that could be even worse.
And that's even worse. Nowhere to plug in?
Yeah. AAA doesn't bring you out.
No.
I don't think the energy yet. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, I'm sticking with gas.
Yeah. Yeah, so we were explaining the contract. So if you guys are back with us today, we were paragraph 8B and /B. And that was the part of the contract if the buyer fails to timely deliver any written notice provided for paragraph 8B, which basically this is saying that if your loan approval you haven't got your loan approval by this time, you're going to have to keep your deposit. That's where we were at.
Well, I think this is also too was going into the cash transaction process of it.
Yeah. So if you don't provide, basically if you don't
switched
provide
it from cash to lender and you fail to meet those timelines, those time periods on the contract.
You know what it's saying too is that if you don't provide written notice that you're canceling, you're a buyer.
Right.
Then it's going to turn into automatically a cash transaction, which has no contingencies.
No contingencies.
Right. So if your realtor's new and they don't deliver that, then you're going to have a problem because now you're not getting your deposit back basically because there's no contingencies left in the contract. But for people like layman's terms, it's basically check your approval. Check to make sure your buyer is approved, or if you're the buyer, make sure you're approved because you're about to lose your deposit.
Right,
basically.
and communicate with your seller's agent or your listing agents.
Yeah, because they're going to want to know that. So and then that was the other thing too, because I just took that class as well. We were talking about that. Okay, so it said so a lot of new realtors. And some of the old realtors too think that texting is a legal document. So we're talking, they said the mail,
right,
which is old school, but the mail, email,
And we talked about this last week too.
Yeah, exactly. That texting is not going to work. So if you're going to cancel your contract and you text your agent, then you're going to want to not text you can text your agent as well as emailing your agent as well as, hey, we're not approved. And basically then, that buyer's agent's in liability, you know what I mean? So if you tell them, this is not approved, I need to get my deposit back, and the buyer's agent doesn't acknowledge it, then they're going to get in trouble,
Right.
So, they're basically going to be liable for that deposit that your buyer's not going to get back. So it's going to turn into a big mess.
Yeah, it's like communication is key.
Yes.
Full disclosure.
Yeah. Remember? Disclose, and disclose some more. Yeah. So basically, if you're not approved for your loan, at that point, put it in writing. So then we got paragraph 9A. Costs to be paid by the seller. On this one, basically, it's saying, on that charges for FIRPTA withholding or reporting. Basically, it's saying that the if that box is checked there, then the seller is going to pay. And normally in the state of Florida, the seller is going to pay title charges, all those fees. But the change was for FERPTA withholding and reporting. So, and remember, we had that whole thing on FERPTA. If you guys don't know what it is, basically you got a foreign seller.
Foreign Investment Real Estate Property Tax Act.
Right. So a lot of on the FERPTA to kind of, again, not an attorney, but with FERPTA, if they're going to sell, they want to sell to a homesteaded individual. They don't want to sell to another investor to save them the taxes and stuff on it.
Somebody who's going to make it as their primary home.
Right. And so if you're on that, if you're selling, they're going to withhold that money, right? You're seeing, they usually withhold like 10%?
10%.
Yeah. So the IRS, the government's going to withhold that money. So if you have if you're doing a transaction with a foreign person, so the changes to the contract are going to be the withholding and the reporting for FERPTA. That's a part that has changed on that. Otherwise, it's the normal. If you check A, buyer, or A, seller's going to pay the title, policy and all that stuff, or B, buyer's going to pay the title policy. Standardly in Florida, usually the seller does pay. Sometimes right now to get the bids, they're checking buyer will pay.
Oh, really? I haven't seen that one.
Yeah. So you can check it. I think there's a special part for Miami on there too, but which doesn't pertain to our area.
Right, there's a little part there in Miami, Dade, Broward, East Coast.
Yeah, which doesn't pertain to us, but it's good to read it just in case you end up, in that area.
And to be honest with you, I would stay away from that county only because it's a whole new, it's like dealing with mobile homes, it's a whole new animal with Miami-Dade County. They require a little more steps, a little more intel.
Yeah, and I don't know why that is, I've never lived in I've obviously visited, and I've seen, because when you sell real estate, as soon as you go to another town, it's like, wow, what's the base price? You just start automatically.
I'm going to Florida. Where in Florida do I want to live?
Yeah, I'm like, do I need to write this off? So I need to look at some houses. I'm just kidding. But no, I always end up looking and getting the real estate magazine and, when you go, but on the transactions, it's the same thing when you go out of state, they're just because in, I don't want to say North Carolina, but it was either North Carolina or Tennessee, the buyer will pay the closing costs. The seller will still pay the commission.
Right.
And no, I think it's South Carolina. So it was different though, And
I think every state is different because I had an experience with a realtor and their buyer's agent was wanting the seller to pay their transaction fee, admin fee, or processing fee, and she says, "Where are you from?" She was from Hawaii. I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay. Well, we don't do that here."
Yeah, you're like wrong place,
not
wrong
Hawaii.
state. Yeah. It's weird. It's different, and it's so funny that Miami can be different with the whole state of Florida.
Yeah.
So if you're in Miami, it'll be different over here. But and I think too because of the base price. I mean, that's one of the highest price per square foot price. Areas is Miami-Dade, so maybe that's maybe because the median's not going to be the same as like Pasco County, Pinellas County, Hillsborough County is going to be higher. The more south you go, the more money you got to make. So so on paragraph 9C, that goes into kind of all that we were just talking about with the Miami-Dade. Let's see. Okay, and this one is
it's just saying that that you should receive 5 days before closing. It left blank. Then your title insurance commitment that usually most title companies will issue you upon receipt of the title search being back.
Yeah, you guys are good about that. So like you'll send the title search over to the agents so they can see that on there. So title evidence, and then they'll say, so it's saying if left blank, then 15 days is the normal to get that back pretty much. I mean, I want to say you guys are usually like a week.
Usually, as soon as we get them back, we just forward them on to the agents.
Yeah, so you can see. And then sometimes the county is a little slow, I think, on the lien.
On the municipal lien searches,
Yeah.
those are taking up to 10 days.
Yeah, I had one close, and it was like did they pay the water? You know what I mean? And so the water, that's a new one for, and that's what the municipal part is
Right.
of it, is the water companies. And the water bill stays with the house, the electric bill doesn't.
Correct.
And so a lot of people get confused about that because they'll say, oh, it doesn't matter, it's on them. But in reality, that water bill has to be paid. So if you're a new agent and you're like, oh, it doesn't matter, they haven't got the water bill. When your buyer goes to turn the water on, they have to pay your...
Right, if there's any outstanding bill, they're going to have to, well, they won't pay, they'll call the agent, and the agent will call us, hey, you missed it.
Yeah. No, you're going to... So I just had one, and I said, hey, did you pay that bill? And he actually said, oh, I meant to pay the bill, and we'd already closed. So the buyer's agent was freaking out, and I was like, can you go pay it? Because they're trying to turn the water on. We already had it the next day. And so he's like, oh, yeah, sure. And I'm like, is there any way you could do it now? Yeah. And he's like, okay. So then he did. I was like, okay. So, because otherwise, I hate to say it as an agent, some of the stuff, if you sign and you advise them, then it's not that you're, responsible, but some stuff you have to take into your own, like
your own account.
Yeah. So you could end up paying a water bill yourself if you make yourself liable by not,
right.
You know what I mean? Because if your buyers don't know and your sellers barely know.
Right. And and they don't know because, oh, I'll get my final bill. I'm like, you will get a final bill, but when they go to turn their water on and there's an outstanding bill that hasn't been paid, they're not going to be able to get it paid. Turned on.
I got one, like I always say, totally off subject, but okay, so I got the helping with the rental, and then the electric's about to go off. So to save the connection fee, quick, better call and turn the electric back on. And she's moving out. So that day, she moves out, and the electric guy, as she's moving out, electric guy gets there and says, oh, I'm just switching it to this name. So then I get a call. I can't believe you did that. I want to get my deposit back. I can't believe you would switch it on me. Who do you think you are? And now they're not going to give me my deposit. And I'm like, that's not how it works.
That's not how it works.
Yeah. I thought that was great though. I was like, so I was like,
I'm like, what? Really?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, and I was like, and it's Duke Energy, and I was like, there's no way that's not. So don't worry, that bill will follow you, and your deposit will follow you too.
Right.
So
right, that bill will follow you. So will the deposit.
Yeah. And then she said, I left all my windows open the last month so I could get my deposit back, and she thought somehow the deposit transferred. So it doesn't. Yeah. So word to the wise. Yeah, I know. Electric doesn't follow you as far as deposits, and you know what I mean. And in the water, if you shut the water off, they will deduct your bill from your deposit. And the same with electric. But if you leave a bill with your electric, it's your bill.
Right.
It ruins
and no
your
deposit.
Yeah, it ruins your credit. Same with like a cell phone, you know what I mean?
Right.
It ruins your...
Yeah,
your
and if
stuff.
you ever need, whatever power company it is that you're using, if you ever need to turn that back on. Yeah, no, that's not...
Yeah, you're going to have to pay, and then you're going to pay more deposit.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can kind of really hike that up as far as if you don't pay your electric bill, you can actually...
I haven't paid since 2019. How much interest and what?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just never on that stuff. It just sits there and waits for you.
It does.
Yeah, you have to negotiate your unpaid electric, you know what I mean, to turn on the new one. It's like, oh my gosh. Because some of the areas, depending on which area you live in, it's like, okay, Duke Energy with Lacucci, Duke,
Right.
So,
and then there's even smaller companies.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
That, I don't, everyone, and now and again you'll throw in, like, who is that?
Yeah, Clearwater Gas, and, and you're like, where'd that come from, you know? Yeah, exactly. So, seller has an owner's policy. Okay, so on the owner's policy, a lot of people don't know this. Actually, you could tell them, too, is that the owner's policy, if you've owned the house for less than 5 years, 3 years?
3 years.
3 years. Okay, so I'm guessing 3 years.
No, 3 years.
Then you get like a little credit. Right?
Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
Reissue credit.
So what's the owner's policy? It's the policy that you get back to show, you bought your house. It's like looks like the deed. It looks like a little package you get in the mail.
Yeah. Usually, though, I don't know if most title companies will send it all together. Sometimes you might get your deed first, and then the title policy usually follows, 4 to 6 weeks later.
And it says owner's policy. So
Just owner's title insurance policy.
Right. Mm-hmm. So if that comes in the mail and you're thinking, I'm only going to live here for 3 or 4 years, that can actually help you out when you...
3 years. No more than 3 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
3 years.
3 years. I keep saying 5. 3. So anyway, if you get that in the mail and then you're selling your house, that title work is going to give you is it $300? Everything's free.
No, it all depends on how much you bought it for and how old it is. That's kind of what it's based off of.
Okay. So I've seen my average, I think, credit on that is $300,
Yeah.
So
it depends on your sales price and then what you purchased it at, and it takes, it's a math thing.
Yeah.
I don't do math in my head.
So think about it so you've owned this house for 3 years, and so now the title company doesn't have to search back all that because they've got your title policy. They only have to search 3 years, so you're going to get a discount.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's the way to, I guess, my layman's way of...
We don't have to go back 30 years.
Yeah, just going to go back to 3 because we already got it all done.
Yeah,
so you're going to get a discount for that. So if you save those title policies, or title
insurance.
Title insurance policy, yep. And so that's on 9C, title evidence. So that actually, works out good for you. And then there's 9, there's the Dade County, because we kind of jumped the gun on that.
Right.
Buyers shall designate closing, 9C. That's the part where it's all backwards, and it's a different country down in Miami-Dade, Broward. But clarified buyer designates closing. I think that's all the same.
Well, and I think too, because when I'm working with my Boca Raton office and Deerfield Beach office, they go cross into the Miami-Dade.
Right.
And so they have agents who are their buyer's agents that will use them, as opposed to the buyer's agents isn't really who choose a title company, unless of course they're paying the title insurance. But
yeah.
over
whoever's
there
paying
split.
gets the upper hand on that one, so you can pick whoever you want if you want to pay. Yeah. So, but I do feel like that's a good negotiation tool if you're, but to exclude the commission if you're a buyer and you're trying to get, the bid. But you want to know the cost, though, so you might want to call ahead.
Right.
So
what, Jessie?
shocked.
And the only thing with when it says when the buyer chooses and pays closing costs, it's a gray area.
Yeah.
What closing costs is the buyer paying for? The policy only, or the doc stamps and the closing fees, or all the charges? So it's very gray.
So if
as
you do
to
that, you
what
really want
it
to
says owner's policy and charges. Well, what are and charges?
Right. Yeah, because literally you could say, well, you're paying the commissions now, and then the buyer's like, what? So
those are the charges.
So that's going to change. They're going to have a whole bunch of problems with that one. And they're going to be like, Jessie and Cheryl said we should have not just put. But so you know what? Even when I use some forms, and they're just forms, I write my own asterisk on there and write in exactly what.
And I think that's good.
Yeah. And have everybody initial it. So, okay,
helps with confusion.
We're going to take a quick break, and then you guys come back, and we're going to tell you, we're going to paragraph 9D of the new Florida contract. Hey, welcome back. I'm Jessie Walters with Charles Rutenberg. I'm here with Cheryl Herny from Nightberry Title Services, and we're explaining the, in layman's terms, I like to call it, the new Florida contract. And we're at 9D, which 9D is about the survey. And we were just saying on the break that this could give a title agent a little bit of anxiety because I've seen a lot of surveys being done that day.
I know. Like, what?
Where's the survey at? And a surveyor comes in.
There it is.
Yeah. So so they're saying it's got to be 5 days prior to closing.
At least.
Yeah. Buyer may, at buyer's expense, have the real property surveyed and certified. So timing changed. Really. Enables surveyor to see title work containing needed info. So, okay, so why would that happen? Well, so some people will ask me, I just had someone ask me a question about, we are going to eventually sell our house, but the neighbor next door wants to put a fence up, and they want to put their boat in the backyard, and they don't want the HOA to see it. I'm not going to mention any names. Okay,
Just saying.
yeah, just saying, yeah.
I'm asking for a friend.
Yeah, so so they send me a message and it says, hey, but we still want to sell. What's going to happen? Well, what's going to happen is if you put a fence and it's connected to both of you guys, and I said, send me a diagram. And she said, send it. And I'm not an attorney, but I said, if you guys send, this one fence, whichever way, pretty side out, means that's their fence.
Right.
And so usually the ugly side in, that means it's your fence. And
right.
you want to put it on one property line, not on both property lines, or not weaving in and out of the property lines. And she said, well, in the front, we want to just have one gate, and the one gate will swing back and forth between the properties. It's going to go across both properties. And I said, no, that's going to be an encroachment, because if it's their gate, then the survey is going to come back and say it's actually
because
on your property.
The latch is going to be on, I guess the other side. I don't know.
Right. And so she said, well, what if we just put the gate there and then put the, and they were kind of going back and forth. But they can't put the fence in the middle because they can't get the boat by it. So I said, okay, this is the only thing I could suggest. So I drew, and I'm such a good artist. I drew it with them going basically like two gates.
Instead of one gate opening, two.
Two gates. That way, if you do have a survey, it's not going to have encroachment on your property. And they were like, oh, that's a good idea.
And not only that, your neighbor moves.
Yeah.
Now what?
Yeah. Yeah, you have your new neighbor who,
Nope, that's my gate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I've had it with just trees. People say, they keep trimming my tree. Not... If your tree's hanging over someone's property, they have that, that's on Judge Judy all day. You guys can watch Judge Judy. She's got our back on that. She's like, well, if it's your tree, trim it in your own property, and if it's hanging on their side of the property, then they can trim it.
Yeah.
That's the part that's theirs,
Right.
But the surveyor won't. They usually don't put go into they don't really care about your trees.
Here's a tree, but half of it's hanging over.
Yeah. They don't really care about limbs of trees, but they do care about property lines being straight with your fence.
Right.
If your fence goes over and then you walk into closing, there may be a problem. They may say, you got to fix that.
Well, there's an easement, as long as, they're like, well, he's been there forever. I said, I'm just, this is just where it is. This is your lot lines, and your fence is, 5 feet over.
Yeah.
As long as your neighbor doesn't squawk or whatever, they're like, no, we want them to move it over, then you're going to have to
talk to them. So do you guys still close if that happens, or do you?
No, we do.
You do? Okay.
We do. We just, because title companies don't insure encroachments.
Okay.
We insure inside the property line. Same thing with easements. If there's easements, we don't insure over those easements. We have no control over
Cheryl,
those
what's
easements.
An easement?
An easement is a drainage easement, utility easement, and those are just easements owned by the county, the city, private easements that they have access to should they need to do work on the ground.
So a lot of times people will say, well, I'm going to put in, like I had one over actually downtown Newport Richey, Main Street. The back of the house had electrical easements, but it looked like trees for days. So when you see that, they wanted to put a pool in, and I was saying, I don't know if that's going to work because you have a huge electrical easement there. And I don't know if it's true, but I've heard that you can pay to have them moved, but then here you are, it's not the perfect situation,
I don't know if they necessarily move them, but if they're like easements that haven't been used in years, and maybe they're no longer there really per se, you can file to vacate an easement.
Right. Yeah. So, but I mean, as a buyer, I think that they're like, well, this might work, this might not work, and then all of a sudden they've got to try to vacate easements. It's just too much. But it's good to, again, as an agent, to you've got to tell your customer, you've got to educate them and say, hey, this might be an active easement. You might not be able to build here or put stuff concrete over it or whatever it is you're trying to do,
Yeah, you don't want to build a pole or on an easement because
Yeah.
if they need access to that easement, your pole's coming apart.
Yeah. And they also will say they have to be able to get to the easement. So I had one in Spring Hill, and the back, there was a cable in the back. And it was a cable easement, and you could see I don't know what the cable guy did, but he left the wire. It was like following like the yellow brick road, you know what I mean? Like
So left it over the ground, above ground.
And I don't know if he was working on it then. And so we went to see the house, and you could see right back to where it went. But but I know that if they have to work on it, you've got to be able to let them in and stuff.
Right.
So, and if you have a dog, they'll knock on the door and say, hey, put your dog up, but that's
Right.
an easement,
Right.
But it's better to find out your easements and setbacks and all that stuff
Right.
on your survey before closing 5 days prior.
Right, and it's nice, just it's kind of one of those tricky things, though. It's like it's your survey, but you haven't paid for it. So if they say, well, we don't want the house anymore, and not that they can do anything with the survey. The survey is to the house, not doesn't go with you.
Right,
you can, but it's useless.
Yeah, exactly.
So hopefully that the new buyer will.
Assume that purchase of that survey.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys know this too, that you can recertify survey too. So if
As long
you're
as it's not
buyer's agent and you
not like
10
years old.
Yeah.
Surveyor's gone.
So for example, if, I had one, they purchased the home like 3 years ago. They had in their mortgage, in their little title folder, usually get from the title company, and there was a survey. So then we give it to the title company. They say, oh, have you done anything? Have you added on anything?
Right.
If they say yes, you got to buy a new survey. Buyer's got to buy a new survey. If they say, no, we haven't done one thing, you can recertify that survey. Saves your buyer of that property about $300 to $400, depending on.
Right.
I had one, but you guys are easier to. I had to use another title company, and I was like about the survey certifying, and they were kind of like, "What are you talking about?" But eventually I won, but I was like, because I had to throw your name out there. Cheryl always does it.
And again, some of these older surveys, those survey companies may not even be around anymore. So that's the tricky part too.
Yeah, because you have to call them and have them recertify.
Right. And you don't always have to have it recertified. Some lenders, as long as there's a survey affidavit saying that the seller is saying there's been no changes, I've owned the house since this, and I've done nothing to the house, and that's acceptable.
Okay. Yeah, so that's what we had. He wouldn't use a seller's affidavit on the last one that I couldn't use you guys with. It was so sad. So, let's see. We are on, I think, paragraph 10. So, permit disclosures. I'm trying to think if there's anything that had changed on there. I think it says just like the language on there, but red line change, permits except as been disclosed by seller to buyer in written disclosure. Seller does not know of any improvements made to the property which were made without required permits or made pursuant to permits which have not been properly closed, otherwise disposed of. Section, I don't have to go in the section. If seller identifies permits which have not been closed or improvements which have not been permitted, the seller shall promptly deliver to buyer all plans, written documentation, all other information. So this is basically saying if it's not permitted.
What's the explanation say? Explanation of revision to paragraph 10.
Language was added referencing 2019 statutory amendment that allows for additional methods to satisfy expired open permits.
Okay.
So if you have an open permit, you're going to have to shut them. And if it's unpermitted, you need to disclose that it's unpermitted. Or if you've never, I know a lot of rental properties, a lot of people have never lived in them, so they just say no disclosure. But if you know of open permits.
Well, and that's another thing too. Municipal lien searches. We search permits.
Right.
Any open permits, expired permits, and it'll even show up the closed permits. Anything open, anything expired, we close them out.
Okay.
Usually about $45 to get them closed out, depending on how old it is and the reason why it was never closed out. We just actually had one. The seller was the owner and the seller was a contractor.
Okay.
He died.
Oh, God.
So he didn't get to close out his permit.
Right. That was not on his mind. Yeah. He's like,
Oh, yeah, no,
poor
not
guy.
what he was thinking about. So we just have, and it takes a couple of more days because, again, we're
Yeah.
working with the county,
Right.
the inspection people there, and the permitting. So that's going to take a little time. So the municipal lien search will take 10 days.
Right.
And then they actually try to get us any open permits sooner so we can start working on getting those closed out. So it's just little
Yeah.
extra steps with open permits. And again, I think most agents will do permit checks themselves to see if there's anything open that, oh, well, it's a new AC. Well, let's see if there's a permit was pulled, or let's
Yeah.
see. And then they'll realize, open a can of worms sometimes, and they're like, okay, well, it's all good. So
yeah,
it
exactly.
depends.
Yes. So if you're, again, a new agent or you're a buyer, you want to, you want to check, you just put you go to the permit, of which county, but for the permit search, it was PA in Pasco County, but now they changed it. But if you just Google permit search, like Pinellas County, you put the address in, all the permits will come up for that house, and then you just want to see, and that actually helps you, like, how old's the roof? How old's the AC?
That's true, too.
So that's what,
Yeah.
because sometimes, agents complain that it's so busy for the seller's agents that they don't call back. You can go on there and say, oh, let's check, I wonder how old the roof is, and they're not calling me back if it's not on the seller's
Right.
disclosure because they never lived there. Then you go and you check the permitting, and then all the years come up, and if it says, if it doesn't have a permit, then you can assume if the house is 2000 that it's the original roof, that it's the original
Right.
AC, until you get out there and you see a brand new AC. But a lot of
And
times,
then there's no permit.
yeah. So a lot of times I had one, they wouldn't let it close because they didn't pull the permit because it was done on a Saturday. And we live in Florida. So most of the time I would say, that's illegal and you should definitely pull a permit. But there's Saturday and Sunday with no air conditioning. It's like 100 degrees. So they didn't pull a permit on the weekend. And it was licensed AC people, blah, blah, blah. And long story short, they had to write a letter that it was up
Explaining.
to. Yeah, that it was up to, and then because the buyer was FHA.
Ah,
Yeah,
that's
so-
a little tricky part in that,
Yeah.
the FHA part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it didn't match up. So the FHA appraiser was very thorough, noticed they were brand new, AC units. And two, if you advertise like brand new AC and there's no permit for it, you know what I mean? You're like, your appraiser, the first thing he's going to do is say, look at your ad for your MLS, and it says brand new AC, brand new roof, brand new water heater, brand new kitchen. So he's going to go to the permitting and go, where's the permit for the brand new kitchen, the brand new, you know what I mean?
Right,
He's going to go through all
right.
that. And if you don't have them all, then
But do you have to pull a permit, though, for brand new kitchen? It's
It depends.
interior. I
It
don't know. Unless they
depends.
do plumbing,
right,
maybe.
right. It depends on how, I think
How
it's on
in-depth?
no, I think there's if you spend, I think it's $2,500, you have to pull a permit. But yeah, that's a Collier County. Yeah,
Really? $2,500 you have to
it's
pull a
20
permit?
If anything over $2,500, so if you lay cement and it's I believe if you lay $500 worth of cement, I don't think you have to pull a permit. But if you lay over 20, if you put say cement and an enclosure and it comes to say 5,000, you better pull a permit. You know what I mean? So
Right. Well, but if you're just redoing your kitchen,
yeah, I think it's a fine line.
oh God,
Yeah, you're like Cheryl's going to jail after this.
I didn't do the work, so no, I'm
Yeah,
not.
you're like I don't know.
I didn't get a new
Yeah.
kitchen.
Yep.
No, that's the original kitchen. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no permit, so it must be.
Right.
Yes. Okay. So we got the next one. I'm trying to think which one we were at. So we got. So that was
the surveys.
So that was
We went from surveys to
permits. Make sure
permitting,
you
yes.
disclose property maintenance. This property maintenance is saying you better mow your yard. You better clean your pool, because if you don't, you're gonna have to pay out of your escrow or out of someone's paying.
So, yeah,
actually
somebody is paying.
Seller better have that property looking good.
And I've a lot of horror stories. The buyers come to closing and the lawn hasn't been mowed.
Yeah.
Or they go out and do their walkthrough and the lawn hasn't been mowed, or trees
Yeah.
haven't been trimmed, or things have kind of appeared, or whatever
Yeah.
it is, and not happy sellers.
Or another thing that the sellers do that really upset buyers is that they'll turn the electric and the water off.
Right.
So they do a walkthrough at closing, And so the pool pumps are off, the pool's green, you know, the water is off, so it's the yard's not being, you know, watered.
Yeah.
So we have a bunch of problems that way. So the best thing is, if you're a seller, keep your electric on, keep your maintenance, your lawn being mowed, your pool's being cleaned.
Right. And I think, too, it's like just one of those courtesy things. If you're the one buying, would you want this to happen to you?
Right, exactly. I say that all the time. My seller is probably sick of, leave the house as if you were purchasing the house. Because they say, what should I do? And I say, well, just imagine you're walking in your first day here. And then they go like, oh, you know.
Right.
Darn it.
I was helping clean out a house. They were getting ready to sell and clean out a house. Well, the buyer can take care of it. I'm like, no. If you were buying this house, would you want to deal with this?
Right.
No, then let's clean it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I just had one. I won't mention anything because she'll kill me, my seller. And she got stuck. She was at work, and they did a walkthrough, and it was just full of stuff. And they said, we're not going to close unless the stuff. So I literally, and I'm not saying that I'm going to do this for all you guys because this was an emergency situation, first of all. But I went and got my husband's truck and then just started loading and sending her pictures at work. Is this garbage? Are you keeping this? Is this garbage? Are you keeping this? And I loaded the whole truck up. And the buyer's agent was really happy, you know, that because I took pictures. It was all cleaned out, threw everything in the garbage. Got a full load.
So if you guys need an agent who also moves debris, 727-992-5555.
Yeah, that's it. Just call me, I'll help.
Jessie Walters or Charles Rutenberg?
Yeah,
oh, yeah, look, there's her number even.
See? Yeah. Zoom in
and get that.
Yeah, and you know that I've gone and cleaned.
I know you have. One too many times.
No, yeah.
But you know what? As an agent, you guys do what you got to do to get the house done, sold, and you've come this far. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Nope.
Yeah. Yeah, so the buyers agents and selling agents should have a lawn guy who knows that you're kind of like a crazy realtor and that you may call and say, can you mow this today?
Right.
You know, give them $10, $20 extra.
Have that handyman handy in your pocket.
Yeah, and a handyman for like, you know, they weren't supposed to rip, you know, now they weren't supposed to rip the TV attachments off, but they left a big hole in the, you know.
It's funny you should say that because I'm putting a TV mount on my wall. I'm like, okay, if I move, that has to stay. I can't move it.
I just get the medium one. Don't get the $1,000 one.
I'm okay with that because then I don't have to go and repair the holes and patch them and repaint it. I don't have to do all that.
You know what? Some of my sellers will even leave their TV hanging there with it now because they're just like, I'm not going to leave that because that looks bad too.
And they're so cheap now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not saying everybody can afford them, but they're just not.
Yeah, they're not a big expense.
Yeah.
All right, you guys hold tight. We're going to go to the next paragraph right after this. Welcome back. I'm Jessie Walters with Charles Rutenberg Realty, and I'm here with Cheryl Herny. We're talking about the new contract. Cheryl is the professional from Nightberry Title Services, and she's explaining as good. And like I said, we're not attorneys, but we're pretty good at explaining this. If you have questions, though, call your broker or call your realtor or call me, and I can explain.
Disclaimer.
Yeah, call. You know the number. So anyway, we're on paragraph. Let's see. I think we're on time is of the essence. Yep. Okay, so what does that mean? that means that you better giddy up and make sure it's on the, in the right,
Giddy up.
giddy up and make sure it's all in the right time frames. You're looking at this contract, and the best thing to do is to get a calendar and put on your calendar, if you're a realtor, you're going to put like Mrs. Jones, this is a time frame for my home inspection, this is a time frame for my survey, this is a time frame for my loan approval. And if you're a buyer, you want to do the same thing, just in case your realtor is overwhelmed and misses something, But time is of essence is saying that you should basically respect the guidelines and the times in this actual contract. And then the change is basically a day on which national legal public holiday is observed because it's fell on a Saturday or Sunday. So if you have, we were just talking about this last week, if it's Martin Luther King Day, then then you got Saturday, Sunday, and Martin Luther King, you know what I mean? So
that is not considered a business day.
Right. So calendar day, which is not a Saturday, Sunday, or on a day which a national legal public holiday is observed.
What does that say, no 5 p.m. cutoff? I think you have, till midnight now or something?
Yeah, I believe so. So it's, holidays, time zone. Yeah, and the time zone too is where so if you're a California buyer and you're in Florida, it's a Florida.
And the property's in Florida.
Yeah, it's a Florida time zone. I get a lot of lenders from California, and it's so frustrating because we're there at 9 o'clock and they're just heading in at 12. But then
the contract doesn't apply to them. It's the buyers.
Yeah, poor buyers. I know exactly. And I think, not to mention anything, but Truist was one that they kept with California, and then they were in North Carolina too, but they were all over. And so they would call at like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, which is fine as long as you're getting it done,
Right. Or they send an email at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for them, but for us, we're gone.
Yeah. It's next day.
We're gone. It's next day.
Yeah. So if you want to use a Florida lender, try the mortgage firm. Delin Gaston can help you with the mortgage firm. They're in Florida lender. You don't have to worry about that time frame as far as the loan goes. So there's Delin, and also, but this is talking about this one right here is talking about the time for the contract. So if it says, you have a 7-day home inspection, and it's the 7th day and you're trying to get out of the contract because you're not happy, make sure you follow that. Don't say, well, I did contact my agent, she knows I'm not happy. Make sure you
no texting.
Yeah, make sure you're not texting, make sure you put it in writing, make sure you follow up with your realtor to make sure that they've sent it over, you're following the timeline, because the seller can just say, nope, you're out of, and a lot of the seller's agents will just say, we're keeping your deposit,
Right.
And then it turns into a big war.
Big escrow dispute.
Yeah. Cheryl hates escrow disputes.
No fun.
I know. And I had one, and we finally, after months, remember I was telling you, after months, we worked it out, and they ended up my buyer, it was sad for my buyer, but we actually ended up getting it all back, so it was good. But we hadn't made any mistakes, though. So
Well, see, and that's the thing. You have to make sure your ducks are in a row.
Yeah, because if we had made one mistake, that would have been a different. Oh, that would have been bad. Okay, so we have on G, I think, buyer or seller not required to exercise or perform, right? So this one goes into, this one's talking about the buyer has a right to do this, but not an obligation. Oh, so it has two things. The ability.
Well, this talks about anything that's been delayed.
Yeah.
Why is it delayed? And so it kind of gives you a little leeway. If a hurricane comes through, this is where force majeure would come in, that you're automatically granted whatever, a couple of days more.
Right. So what my brain was ticking about, like if you and the walkthrough is right there on the bottom of it, because walkthrough inspection, the buyer has a right, but it's not an obligation. So with these together, so I just had a customer, they're from out of state, Kentucky. They were coming in, they wired their cash, they did it all online. So as a buyer's agent, when you know your customer is going to do that, you want to go to the home and you want to make sure that the home is still standing, is what I say. Make sure it's not flooded. Make sure that there's no squatters living in the house. There's no, because the areas right now, all the areas, you can be in the best area and there could be a squatter in the house. You want to make sure that everything is up to par in the house and stuff. Because now, if they come and the house is flooded, whose insurance is that on? It turns into a whole different thing. I had one in, I think it's Lakeside Woodlands, Hudson, and the same one, she'll love me telling this story, but the same one that we got the deposit back months later, she purchased another home, or she went under contract with another home. She gets it, she gets the contract, we get a great deal, and everything's going well, and then we go do the walkthrough, and the water was under the floor, the wood floor was like, as we're walking through, and I was like, what is that noise? And what happened was the tap from outside had a drip, and I guess evidently it turned into
through the inside.
And it dripped into the back room, ruined all the flooring and stuff. So had we not done the walkthrough, I said, oh, the house is fine.
Right.
Let's go to closing. Had we not done the final walkthrough, it would have been a different scenario. They would have been really sad because now they got to replace all the flooring. But the seller ended up actually, we actually did close, so we didn't have to use this clause, but we got a credit at closing. So it's real important to do a final walkthrough, but like they said, it's not obligatory. You don't have to. So, so they have a time example. So if you assume, they say that on here on Christmas. I don't know if that one's on there or not, but they have it. If you assume that December is on Sunday, closing is scheduled for Monday the 26th, when is the holiday observed? When does the closing occur? So it kind of has a little quiz there for you. So if you put in, some agents do that. They'll say, we better close December 24th then. But they won't check that. They won't check their calendar. That's a Saturday. You can't close. So you have to close Monday through Friday. So, or you might say that, I want to close before Christmas, get my homestead exemption. And I'll close Christmas Eve. Are they still open? And they're open. Yeah, it's no problem. But then they look, no, they're not open. It's a Saturday. So when do we actually close? And we'd be closing on the Monday.
Or it would be the day before, legally. Saturday.
Yes. It would be the day before. So legally, to stay in contract, it would be the 23rd, which would be the Friday.
23rd, yeah.
So, but as far as this extensions and all that stuff, you could close it and ask for an extension on the 26th.
Right.
But legally, and that was that class I took. Right. That was one of the questions, which I got correct, was, it was like the third's on a Sunday, and then your contract is up on the 3rd. Should you close the Monday or should you close the Friday? You should close the Friday because you're still under contract. Because on the Monday, if you didn't do anything, they could say, well, we have backup contract. You know what I mean?
But doesn't that force majeure kind of come into play there, though?
Yeah.
They can't just say, but you're out of contract. You didn't close on Sunday.
Yeah, that's a fine line because legally, you're, a contract, you're up prior or on that day. But then you've made the mistake of putting it as a Sunday. So
let's just put it out 30 days. Okay, well, what's today? Today is the 15th. Let's just put February 5th or March 15th.
That's
not realizing that the 15th is a Saturday or a Sunday. So put your phone out, get your calendar. Is it's a weekend? Let's do the day before or the day after, whatever.
And if you're a buyer's agent or a seller's agent, and you're like, I'm going to get rid of this buyer, then even though they spent a home inspection, even though they spent on the survey, even though they spent on the appraisal. One, it's kind of heartless, but two, I bet when you call your broker, they're not going to be real happy with you trying to shake them on the following day, especially when it's in here and it covers you, know. But two, you might get, at the end of the day, I think doing good is better than making a little bit more money on someone who bid higher. $300, you know what I mean, is not going to...
it's like the whole process again.
Yeah.
Another 30, 45 days.
And then there's a family crying, and then, your poor buyer's agent has to tell them that you're trying, so.
And then it's a domino effect. If they're trying to buy, it's just.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it can turn into a real nightmare. So be good, have a heart, have a conscience.
Be kind.
Yeah. That's your New Year's resolution. You already went through that. You already had a show on that. So the next one, basically, like we were explaining about hurricanes, floods, extreme weather. So they've added, I don't know why you guys wouldn't think that they wouldn't add for COVID and pandemics, because it's right here now. Yeah, because it was never in there. It never said, obviously there was no such thing as COVID-19.
You got wars, insurrections, civil unrest.
Yeah, so that's all new. Say that 3 times. Government, mandates, government shutdowns, epidemics, pandemics. Yeah, so.
You can't say it because of COVID anymore. Sorry.
Yeah.
Doesn't work.
And acts of God, which would be like, flood, rising, so storm surges,
volcanoes if you
hurricanes.
live on the other side of this country.
Yeah. If you live again in Hawaii.
Yeah,
Come
Hawaii.
Yeah.
There's erupting volcano day. We can't close.
Yeah. Yeah. So then on G, be deemed the first day of the effect.
So the first day would be like the hurricane hits. You're supposed to be closing on, hurricane day. It starts that day.
Right. So let's just say the first, there's a hurricane. And a lot of times too, depending if that hurricane was on the other side of on the Gulf, if it's in the box, they call it,
right,
you're not closing anyway because your insurance company is saying, is saying now no one's closing.
Right, because you're in the
state
box.
Of Florida. And a lot of realtors, buyers don't know that too. And sellers, they don't know that if there's a named storm, the chances of your buyers being able to close is slim. So you either close them. If you see that hurricane way down by Cuba or whatever, you want to start closing now because as soon as it's in the box, sometimes they'll let you bind them ahead of time, but they have been saying even if they're bound,
but
they won't
even
let
if they're
close.
binded, they still will not let. I mean, it's a big insurance liability. So they bind you and they close and there's no house. Now what?
Yeah, exactly. But not that this happens all the time in Florida. That's what when I see that little, you know what I mean?
That little circled little eye.
When I see this, and then it's in the Gulf of Mexico, then it's like a red flag.
And it's not necessarily that you're going to err in the path of the storm, but you think about the winds and the rain around the actual storm itself.
Right, exactly. So that's gonna go in there. For example, when a hurricane interferes with performance. So that one's that, and then yes, we got COVID-19 and hurricanes. Only Florida gets to talk about. I'm sure other states with the COVID-19, but hurricanes. That's usually Florida has a lot of hurricanes visiting us, just driving by.
Right.
So, and then we have the proration credits. This is your part right here.
Proration credits.
Your favorite part.
Oh, let's see. Prorate. We prorate taxes, real estate taxes,
It's the same.
and any special benefit tax assessments, like CDDs. Even though it's all a part of your tax roll, they're still prorated, you know, because it's just not an actual tax.
Right.
It's a bill. It's a, community, what is it? Community Development District, CDDs.
Yep. And those are, so a lot of times people say, well, the community only has the CDD for this many years and they expire, and I want to check when that is, when they expire. But a lot of times they re-sign those CDDs
I've never seen a CDD go away, honestly. They're
usually like 30 years, so you don't really see someone going. And then, I saw one new construction, they bought out the CDD. So, so one part, so I'll just tell you.
How do you buy out a CDD?
So there's a place in Pasco County, Longleaf has a CDD, right? New section of Longleaf, they were buying out the CDD, the new construction homes. So they had like the builder put it as a special. This is like maybe 4 years ago. I don't think that's a thing now because we have a shortage in inventory, but they were, and so then you would go, I want to say it was West Bay, but it was part of their, they would pay some closing costs, pay down the CDD, and so it was compared to, they were right next to Starkey Ranch, and Starkey Ranch had the CDD, so you could show almost the same house, very similar new construction, and you could go across the street from Starkey to Longleaf and say, oh, there's no CDD, and people were like, wow, it's a beautiful community, and there's no CDD, or the CDD's paid down by the builders. Yeah. And you can you could actually buy out at the new construction time. You could buy out that CDD too.
When you say buy out, what do you
paying off the lien basically from that builder? So that builder's basically, in layman's terms, builder's going to maintain that property that property is going to look good for 25 years. Allegedly.
I don't know who it depends if they're still around for those 25 years.
Yeah. So you're going to pay off that CDD so it doesn't. So sometimes they'll let you pay it off. Pay it down, pay it off. Yeah. So I know it sounds crazy. Cute. So I got like a CDD education, but so I'll say, well, don't worry. There's only 17 years left of your 30-year mortgage on a CDD. Right. But then they'll go and the community will take a vote and redo the CDD because it's keeping their community so nice,
Yeah, that's what's keeping it up.
Yeah. So, check each community, and I'm sure Longleaf has changed, but I know the one side definitely still CDD. But you can verify all that. But yeah, that was how I learned about the CDDs.
Interesting.
Yeah. So and you know what? Another thing that people don't know too is that the PACE loans, those are on your tax assessment bill.
Those are on your taxes.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
a lien on the house, though.
Right.
Even though it's CDDs are not liens, they're
Right.
just the homeowners association part of it. But PACE loans, I can say the solar panels,
Right, and roofs, AC, water
anything
heater.
PACE. Yeah, those are actual liens on the
Right.
property, and they will have to be paid off.
Right, and so PACE, a lot of people, the misconception on that, which is it's a great program, is that the new owner will assume that, and they will not. You will be paying PACE in full prior to. So if prior to your sale or at your sale. So if you thought, well, I'm not even going to enjoy these solar panels. My new buyer is getting the benefit. Why do I have to pay them off? You guys can try to negotiate that or something, but you will be paying them off.
I'm wondering, for some reason, it sticks in my head. If they will assign that PACE loan to the new homeowner.
Because I did a program on PACE and I didn't see anything
that on
it.
there?
Yeah, but if you find out, tell me. So
I'm
going to
actually look into it now, actually.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people because you can't see the PACE loans. So they just started, and actually there's a list on Pasco County where you can actually see who has the PACE loans now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on if you go to the front and put Pasco County and then put PACE, it'll bring up the person's name and stuff and the address. I don't know if there's any way to do it backwards, but it has a huge list of people that have done it. Because it's like
interesting.
Yeah, zero money down, and it's lien against your house. So
right.
But they bill you at tax time, and that's part of the proration. But your proration will be in full, as far as I know.
Right.
And if I'm wrong, I'd like to know, because I so update us. So then we get to contract not recordable. So this this contract, when it's just sitting, it is not being recorded, just like a lease. They're not recorded.
Right.
So if you delete this contract, or you cancel, there's no record of it at the county building or anything like that. So that's kind of interesting. And the email, and we already went through that with facsimile, was part of the contract. So hopefully this made you guys more aware of what's on the Florida contract. If you guys have any questions, there's still more information that we could give you. But if you guys have any questions, you're trying to do it yourself, you need a realtor, call me. I can help you out. If you need a title company,
Call me.
Yeah, she's who I use. So you'll have the dynamite duo here. If you work with me, you get to work with Cheryl too. So everybody have a great day, and thanks so much for joining us.